Congratulations, it looks like you've made it. You've been vehemently working in the job market for 25, 30 plus years, and it's finally paid off, right? You've been stacking your chips, you've been stowing it away in the trusty 401k program, and now look at you. You got a couple of mil to your name, right? In your net worth portfolio, if you will. And it's paying you what, maybe $200,000, $300,000, $500,000 a year and as an annual income, right? And you've made it. You have accomplished the American dream. Good for you. But now you want the rest of the world to know that you have accomplished the American dream. Enter the 2021 Range Rover Velar P250 S model. Range Rover has long been known as the status symbol amongst the one percenters, right, in the United States and really across the world. They have certainly made a mark for themselves. But is it any good? We're going to find out. But if you're not a wealthy boomer and you're like me and you're and you want the finer things in life before you have arthritis in your kneecaps, then I guess you could just lease this as well, because we are in the United States. Really across the world, you know, you can lease it, finance it. You got credit cards nowadays, so you can have whatever you want right now today if you wanted to, but I guess that's not always financially a good move. Well, first of all, let's talk about the exterior on the Range Rover Velar, because in my opinion, this is one of the prettier Range Rover products that they've come out with. This is a really good design, and it's got this kind of modern aesthetic going on to it. In my opinion, the side profile and the rear are kind of my favorite angles on the new Velar. And I like the size of it too. It's about 189 inches long, and as we're about to see in the interior segment, it's got some decent legroom. You know, Range Rovers, Land Rovers, they're not really known for their rear legroom, in my opinion. You know, I've driven the largest Range Rovers as well, the full-size ones, and there's not a whole lot of legroom back there, and this is about the same, so maybe an inch shorter. So I think this makes a lot of sense in the Range Rover lineup. This is the S model, so it's one of the more base trim levels, if you will, but there's also like this R Dynamic that you can get, and a HSE model, which is like the fully loaded P400, right? So let's kind of get into that, because you can leave your thoughts in the comment section below about the looks of this car, the appeal, the status symbol that this represents, right? You can kind of leave your thoughts on that. Some of the other vehicles that I'll be talking about later will be the Mercedes GLE and the Porsche Macan / Cayenne. So let's kind of move on into some of these driving aspects now. Because we have here the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, because this is the P250 model, and this produces 247 horsepower and 269 pounds-feet of torque. Now, the way that this 4-cylinder is programmed, you know, it does 0 to 60 in about 7.1 to 7.4 seconds. And, you know, that doesn't sound very quick, but the way they have this thing tuned, it gives you all the thrust like immediately. It is like overly reactive. I don't know why, but the throttle pedal, the transmission, everything about it in the normal and the sport modes especially, it just reacts way too violently, if you will. But I found that when I drive it in the eco mode, it's great. And it's made it to this 8-speed automatic transmission. You have to be in the sport mode to activate it, but I really like the paddle shifters because they feel so good. It's like these big old metal paddle shifters. Even sports cars don't have paddle shifters this nice, so I'm surprised you find that here in a Range Rover product. It reacts pretty well, but just leave it in the automatic mode and leave it in the eco mode, because that's the most appropriate way to drive it, because it's genuinely not that quick. They just make it feel quick, and a lot of people are going to appreciate that in city driving, but once you get it out on the highway, it's like any other turbocharged 4-cylinder. It really doesn't have the it kind of loses steam, if you will, past like 85, 90 miles per hour. So that's not what you're going to be doing in the United States anyway. This is just all for testing purposes, if you will. And the way you see this 2021 Velar S stickered here, it's about $65,000. I would personally spec it out to about $70,000 and get the inline 6 engine. It's going to be a little bit smoother than this, and it's going to be a mild hybrid setup. So it's kind of going to give you that effortless thrust that you're looking for in a vehicle of this class and category and price, right? For only about $5,000 more. And you get plenty of standard features here, which I'll talk more about in the interior segment. And that engine will do about 5.5 seconds to 60 if that matters to you. So enough of that. Let's talk about some other things. With a Range Rover product, any luxury car really, you're going to be concerned about the ride quality as well as the quietness, refinement, things like that. It is comfortable. We're rocking 20-inch wheels on this particular model, and we have 255 wide tires in all four corners, and these are the kind of Pirelli all-season tires. I would personally, like I always mention in pretty much all my reviews, for a luxury car, just get the Touring Continental tire. Those typically are the quietest and provide plenty of grip for you. And I would even step it down to the 19-inch wheels. It might not look quite as nice as this, but the 19-inch wheels will kind of eliminate some of the smaller bumps that kind of translate into the cabin for me, because that's kind of what I'm noticing here. Some of the smaller imperfections, you do kind of notice it throughout the chassis and even in the steering wheel, through your seat, etc. So if you want to eliminate that a little bit further, the 19-inch wheels will help out with that. This particular car does not have the dynamic handling package, although that's not a bad package to get. I would kind of consider it because this chassis is pretty good as a whole. It's not a sports sedan, it's not the Porsche Macan or anything like that, but what it offers is, in your day-to-day driving, making casual left-hand turns, right-hand turns, it never feels like it's going to flip over on itself or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? There's no excessive amounts of body roll or anything like that. You always have a decent amount of confidence, and even out on the highway, I was doing like well over 100 miles an hour in this thing, again, for testing purposes, and I found the stability to be truly excellent. So for everyday kind of 75, 80 mile per hour highway driving, this should be very appropriate. It doesn't mask out the wind noise and the tire noise completely, but it does a relatively good job. In fact, in the city driving, it's very quiet. Like under 55 mile per hour driving, it is extremely quiet, and I really appreciate that. Steering is super smooth, like you would expect out of a electronic steering rack. There's some legitimate communication here throughout everything, right? From the drivetrain, the engine, you actually kind of hear it a little bit. And it's not a bad sounding four-cylinder, which is nice. The chassis, the suspension, all kind of communicates with you while still remaining decently comfortable. Again, this is not the pinnacle of luxury cars in my opinion. Again, you're kind of buying this as that status symbol because you want a Range Rover product, but know that this is not a bad car. This isn't junk, okay? I thought that this would be a much lower quality machine, but again, I'll mention this in the interior segment, but this is a really damn solid machine. It's built really well, feels tightly put together, so I do like all those aspects. When you open and close a door, it feels solid, and only weighs like 4,100 pounds, which again, is not a bad weight figure considering the fact that this is an all-wheel drive SUV, right? We have double wishbone suspension in the front, multi-link in the rear. The thing that everybody talks about with these Range Rovers are the off-road capability. So it's plenty capable when you take it on a casual drive to Nordstrom and you jump a few curbs when you're in Chick-fil-A, the Starbucks drive-through. So when you jump those curbs, this thing has plenty of articulation and downhill assist, all these things to help you out in those parking lot situations, right? It's more than enough capable. If you live up north, you know, inclement weather, not a problem, but a lot of SUVs nowadays with all-wheel drive can tackle inclement weather. It's really not a big deal. Hell, a sedan will suffice, honestly, in many situations. So yes, all the off-road capability in this is absolute overkill, but hey, they're charging you a premium, and at least it delivers in those regards. It's nice to know that it can do all these things, right? But yeah, all in all, not a bad driving experience at all. The visibility is good. It's easy to drive, easy to place out on the road. It's not intimidating. You do feel like you sit up a little bit higher, which many people in this segment do want. And it's a pleasant driving experience. It's not the quietest vehicle in the world. Hell, you can get like a Lexus RX 350 that's going to be quieter than this. However, that's not what you want, okay? That's not prestigious enough. It doesn't have the pedigree that a Range Rover has. If you want a Range Rover, you're gonna get a Range Rover. But I will leave you with this. Some other baller machines to consider, because I know you have money, most likely, if you're watching this, or even if you're leasing this, you're not concerned about reliability or resale value or anything like that. So if you're actually in the market for this, or these types of vehicles, the GLE Mercedes is something to really consider. In fact, that's what I would personally go with. I think it looks imperial. It looks like a cathedral on four wheels, and I just love the substantial feel when you drove it. It felt like a nice heavy machine when you piloted down the road. And the Porsche Macan handles better than this. In fact, it's a little bit of a higher quality machine overall, right? It's a little bit more smaller, dainty machine. and it's a rather expensive car as well, especially brand new. So I get it. The Range Rover and that Benz are the two vehicles that have some prestige and some character in this segment. So between the two, I would choose the GLE Benz, but up to you on what's available to you in your market, what you can order, what you can get quickly. This is not a bad machine. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying consider the other options that I mentioned to you. And yeah, with that, let's go ahead and let's transition over into the interior segment. Okay, so now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior. So this is what I've been really waiting to talk about because I am just so impressed with the build quality of this interior. I actually just recently got out of an Audi A6, okay? And I really regard Audi as some of the top vehicles in the segment for solidity, interior solidity that is. None of the panels creak or rattle or anything like that. Everything feels solid, and you know what? This mimics that really well. All the panels, center console pieces and everything, none of it shakes or rattles or anything like that. It's really well put together, and I was pretty shocked by that. I expected it out of the Range Rover Sport and the full-size Range Rover. I've driven both of these vehicles. I've driven the high mileage variants, like with over 100,000 miles, and you know, the full-size Rovers, the Sport models. When you get in them, even with 150,000 miles on it, they still feel like brand new cars, like bank vaults, honestly. So I expect that out of those two cars, but I really wasn't expecting that out of this Velar. Okay, so that really impressed me. And for those reasons, I really consider the Velar to be the value proposition in the Range Rover lineup, especially with that inline-6 engine. It's going to be smoother than the previous V6 engines. And one last thing to note, the V8s are no longer available for the 2021 and 2022 Velars. Kind of depressing, but I get it. That's very expensive. So at least the inline-6 should provide you plenty of thrust. Anyway, yeah, interior build quality, really well done. Also, the leather seats in here, they almost always, they age perfectly in all Range Rover products. Now, I will say, these seats are a little bit hard. Okay, it's on the harder side. Audi seats are also on the harder side, but they offer compliance. They feel a little bit softer. This, you know, it's really hard, and you kind of feel it on a longer drive, like over 1 hour of driving. I kind of feel myself getting sore in my rear end. Okay, so it is a little bit stiffer. It does offer some good lumbar support, so that's good. I would like them to soften up these seats a little bit more, but the benefit is these things will age perfectly. Okay, 100,000, 200,000 miles down the road. Not that you're going to be keeping it for that long, but just know if you buy like a certified pre-owned Range Rover, you're going to be getting a really solid, well-made cabin space. The interior is not going to be all wrinkled up and look all disgusting. Now, the negatives to this interior is all the screens and the gadgets. Okay, I don't mind screens and all that stuff in a car anymore, but this is just not very well done. Okay, it looks good, I'll give it that. The screen quality is excellent. The sharpness, the dark levels, all those things, they all look proper, and there's not even a whole lot of glare or anything on the screens. But problem is, it's just not intuitive. Okay, it just doesn't make sense. You're always taking your eyes off the road, and it's just very dangerous. If you're a little bit older and you're not really accustomed to all these things, hell, I'm not accustomed to it. I don't like using it, and I'm a millennial, so there is a definite learning curve here with this screen. It's a 10-inch screen. It's like that Pixie Pro or whatever. That's the new the screen technology that they're adopting for the 2021 model years, because the previous Range Rovers, they were kind of slow to react, and they were pretty glitchy overall. So they kind of adopted this new technology. I think it's called Pixie Pro, whatever it is. It works well. It's quick to respond and all those things. Like that's not an issue. It doesn't glitch up on me. It's fast, it's beautiful. But again, the way they laid everything out using it, it's not ergonomic. That's what I don't like here. And you have this dual screen thing going on here as well, which Audi had that as well, but Audi's was much easier the way it was laid out. There wasn't really a learning curve to it. Other than the fact that physical buttons were lacking in the Audi, that second screen was primarily used for the climate control only. In this case, not so. You have your vehicle controls here, your climate, your seat heaters, all that stuff is implemented into the second screen here. It's just not my favorite design. Also, they did give you a physical volume knob and a dial for the climate control, so that's nice, but again, not my favorite. The gauge cluster, the same thing. It's not intuitive the way it's laid out. But one of the other things that you can do, which is kind of cool, is you can actually convert the entire gauge cluster into a navigation screen, which I thought that was pretty cool. Meridian sound system, this is the upgraded Meridian sound system, not the base one that's like 400 watts. This is the 3D surround, and it does truly sound clear and crisp, plenty of bass, and you can kind of tweak that in the equalizer. One touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. It is not double pane glass, however, and if it was, that would help quiet the vehicle down a little bit further. Something to note there. Memory seats, plenty of space in the door pockets. You have 3 cup holders here, and you can even fit a phone in the first cup holder, which is nice. I do like the little digital gear lever knob. A lot of piano black plastic, but even with close to 3,000 miles, it doesn't look dirty or disgusting, which I suppose is nice. The center armrest is decent. You have your little USBs and your all that good stuff to connect your phones. It does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so that's good. Glove box space is decent, nothing crazy, and you do have this nice panoramic sunroof here. Again, this is a $65,000 4-cylinder model. The rear legroom space is decent. It's nothing amazing, but it's not amazing in the Range Rover full-size models either, or the Sport models. They are also lacking in rear legroom space. When you go up to those Sport and the full-size models, what are you getting? Well, you're getting a far superior driving experience, okay? You know how I mentioned the GLE there for a little bit? That's kind of substantial quality sensation when you drive it. Not saying that this is a bad driving experience, but it just takes it to the next level, okay? That's what the Sport and the full-size Rovers offer you. So it's all for driving mostly. Space-wise, the only real constricting thing I've noticed is the width of the cabin space. I'm 5'11", and I have plenty of headroom space, legroom. That's not an issue. You can be well over 6 feet tall, but it's not super wide in here. That's what I've noticed. And the same thing goes for the rear occupants. It's not super wide, but the legroom is decent. The trunk space is also not the largest, but again, it's more than enough for most families. And what I love most is they offer you a full-size spare back there as well. So you don't have to put run flat tires on here. You can put those smooth Continental all-season tires on here and not have to worry. So I love that they offer you a real spare, and I like the fact that you can fold down the seats. It's a 40-20-40, and once you fold down all those seats, you should have more than enough space in here. That's not really an issue. And for 2022, you only get a few extra upgrades, okay? You get like the heated seats as standard in the front 2 seats here, and you get this kind of adaptive cruise control. I think they made that as standard as well, and this ionizing air conditioning system, right, purifies the air. You get a couple of those little gimmicks, but outside of that, it's pretty much the exact same car as this. And just make sure to get that P250 inline 6 engine. That's really the only other recommendation I have for you. If you are intent on getting a Range Rover product, this is a good one to get. I like the value proposition here. You know, value proposition, I say that in quotes. 70 grand gets you a lot, gets you that inline 6, and yeah, it should look amazing on your driveway. It's a great status piece. You should be proud to own one. When you pull up in this, people will take you seriously. It's a nice car to take the family out to a nice dinner in. Enjoy the solid cabin space, enjoy the amazing sound system, the beautiful looks, and all that off-road capability, right? The decent driving dynamics. Thanks again for watching this review. Take care and goodbye.